Oh, and I have to ask, is it true that you wrote it about your cat?
No, it's not.
That was just a TikTok for the likes.
In hindsight, maybe I was writing it about the cat that I had never met yet.
Hi, I'm Helena, and I'm joined by Matt Maltese for the latest in Enemies in Conversation series. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So your third album, Good Morning It's Now Tomorrow, is being released next month. Tell me a bit about it and tell me maybe what's different from the previous two albums.
Well, it's 13 songs. Probably have to start with how many songs there are, right? I'd say it's probably my most hopeful album, which is maybe quite strange considering the times, but kind of wrote it in the first lockdown, and I think I was just trying to escape from everything and sort of just made it in my room, which is kind of how I made my second record, but then I sort of had these like 2 pretty magical weeks in Eastbourne in December and with my band, and yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
So was the time making it kind of split between Eastbourne and South London?
Yeah, exactly. So sort of made it in my room and arranged it. And then probably like 8 months later, made it in Eastbourne. I was originally going to go make it in Canada, which was just the stupidest idea, considering what was going on. But it was, it was pretty perfect.
So you said it was hopeful. So how did you find optimism in basically the most turbulent of times?
There's a lot of incredible amount of humanity shown, I feel like, in these times, and I guess also it kind of made you really realise what you had to be grateful for. And yeah, I think it just brought everything to home of how lucky I was just to be in my room, like writing songs, for God's sake, and yeah, it was a sort of coming together of people. Despite everything, which was great, and of course there's still so much unfathomable tragedy despite all of that. But and there's also something so strange about the way that humans just carried on despite, And I think there was something in that. I guess that's kind of what I'm alluding to with the title track is that sort of carrying on despite the madness, which is something sort of ridiculously British about that.
Yeah. Still bubbling.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, your recent single, You Deserve an Oscar, is kind of about that, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of carrying on
exactly,
despite everything.
Exactly.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, it kind of, I guess it's sort of based upon this congratulating people just for being humans and waking up every day and carrying on, and that sort of sort of taking that award show out of Hollywood and just like bringing it to the streets, I guess. Yeah.
And you wrote Ballad of a Pandemic as well during the pandemic, which was released in April 2020. When you look back on that song now, how does it feel?
Very naive, I think. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it was a sort of romantic way to look at the staying inside, but there was so much awful stuff going. I mean, I don't regret it at all. It raised some money for a food bank, and it's fine. Like it does what it does. But hindsight's 2020 also as well. Pardon the pun. That was good. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. So you've also got a recent single called Shoe. Can you tell me a bit about that? I know that it's about love and it's a bit of a love story, but would you say it's a bit different to how you've previously written about love?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably, I don't know, it's probably a lot more ridiculous. I think, it's kind of got this sort of warped, idealistic view of love, which I felt there was something, again, quite escapist, even in the sort of like, in the nature of that song. It's like the ideal form of love, this sort of like togetherness thing, which is definitely happening and happens in love, but is also just a bit nuts. Yeah.
Is it about really how love isn't basically straightforward and simple and easy, or at least my love life hasn't been?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of, love itself is never enough, and there's a lot of projecting and history and baggage, and I guess that song maybe acknowledges that, but like wants to wipe that all away and just make it really simple, which it obviously isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you kind of have fun writing that? Because
Definitely.
it is really fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think again it was like totally an escapist love song. Yeah.
And some of your other singles that have come out quite recently, like Mystery, got a really good response and loads of great attention. Like, how does that feel?
It feels great. Yeah, I mean, every time you release an album, I feel like you think no one's going to give a shit this time. But yeah, it was really nice to come back after all that time as well, and feel like people liked it. Yeah.
And you've recently played a festival as well. How was that performing again?
It was great. Yeah, it was. Nothing prepares you really for playing in front of a crowd other than playing in front of crowds. And obviously there's been none of that. But it was amazing. I had this band that sort of all got COVID separately, just like leading up. So we played together sort of once the day before.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it went really well despite it all. And it's just, I think, it's testament as well to all the audiences at these festivals, I guess, just so happy to be seeing music.
Yeah, of course.
And just very warm.
And have you managed to go to a gig yet or not?
I've been to one gig, in East London, and it was tough. Yeah, it was strange.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got loads of great attention for recent singles, but also, weirdly, an older song has kind of had a resurgence on TikTok as a popular sort of audio soundtrack on the app.
Yeah.
How do you tell us a bit about that and how that went down?
Well, I think it kind of all seemed to start when the pandemic started, and I had this glam rock type chorus with that song, which started to sort of soundtrack. It seemed to be like a lot of people just screaming with no sound on, and then the audio just playing. And then it sort of attached itself to anime and this show called Devilman Crybaby, and then to sort of Harry Potter fandom, and it just went through all these phases. And then I think about 6 months ago, this artist called Sarah Cothran covered it, and then it sort of started this trend of people just covering the chorus. It went from bizarre to more bizarre. Yeah, just. Couldn't predict that at all, and you kind of feel it's funny with old songs, you have no expectations attached to them anymore. It was really nice to watch it happen and not be trying to like campaign it as well.
And do press around it and
exactly.
stuff.
I think there's so much of that when you release a song and whatever, it starts to move and everyone's going like, do this and do this, but it kind of felt like I could just like sit back and watch it in a really nice way. Yeah.
It is quite bizarre because As the World Caves In was released like almost 4 years ago now. But do you think it's also partly because the lyrics are reflecting 2020 basically, and even where we are now?
I guess so. Yeah, I think I was being sort of quite melodramatic in 2017, and then it sort of came to light even more. I mean, not to say there was no doom in 2017, but yeah, I think maybe it's just even more on the nose now, sadly, yeah.
And how do you feel about TikTok in general and how music is used on the app?
I love it. I think the way that TikTok is kind of, I guess it feels to me like it's breaking down the sort of the gatekeepers. I think a lot of industries have a lot of people that sort of get paid or know people that allow them to then promote certain songs, and I think TikTok feels, in the most ridiculous way, it probably feels like the most democratic consumer of music at the moment. It kind of is just people deciding what they like, and it's just nice to have a platform which still can't really be gamed, I think. So I think it's great. I mean, it's obviously ridiculous and has very little mystery, and all these things that I think we've come through, especially with music. There was so much mystery when it was the 60s and the 70s and 80s, and I think all those barriers breaking down and that being destroyed can be quite unnerving and feel like you're like suddenly not able to paint your picture the way you want to. But I think actually it's probably done a lot of incredible things for a lot of people who are who are just like just putting themselves out there. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and because you use it quite regularly now, right?
Yeah,
and you've got loads of followers and
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, I don't even do very good things, I think, but I just like drink a cup of coffee and watch a video of someone singing it, and then that gets more views than like a music video that I spent 3 weeks planning. So yeah.
Well, it's that accessibility, isn't it?
It is,
yeah.
yeah, and I think, I think it's the spontaneity that it seems to love and promote, which probably is a good thing. You know, I spent, God knows, like 5-6 years ago when something like Instagram was, when I was having to sort of embrace that was felt a lot more contrived, a lot more about how things were being presented and looked and planned. And with TikTok, it feels like just the biggest shitposting platform in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because I was going to ask sort of how do you feel about social media in general, because like Instagram and like Twitter and stuff like that, because I feel like all we hear about now is kind of the horrendous stuff that happens, especially on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it kind of means that people forget to see the good in it.
Totally.
I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, like I said with the gatekeeper thing, I think it's opened up so many avenues for people who don't have thousands of pounds to like promote their thing somewhere, and just everyone can become their own promoter. And of course that brings with it a whole wave of like bad things, but also a lot of good things, I think. And it's what we exist in. It's that we're not going to go back to a time where it doesn't exist, so it's kind of trying to make it better rather than sort of, I think, lamenting the fact that it exists feels a bit pointless.
Yeah. Well, I did see a TikTok that you made, which was something that you dubbed the best review of your debut album. I'm just going to read out the line. It says, if Morrissey's doctor had him on a serotonin supplement, he might make this album. Is that fair?
I thought that was really good. What was the other line in there? It was like, the kind of guy who like... Is it like...
It was something like, it's not so depressing that...
Yeah, the kind of guy who like... puts like an apple in like a girl's car exhaust.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was
absolutely
so random.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I'd like to think I'm less depressed than Morrissey, but we'll see. Yeah.
But I mean, is it fair to say that there's kind of a bit of an apocalyptic theme in your music, in your lyrics?
I think absolutely. I mean, I think we all feel apocalyptic, don't we? And I think, I'm just prone to writing about it. A lot, but and it's definitely something comforting about embracing the elephant in the room, which is that an apocalypse could be quite close. So yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And is it important to you, do you think, to kind of explore? I mean, I don't know if you would call it like mental health and stuff like that, but is that important for you that it's not all hunky-dory?
Yeah, I think it's just feelings, and I think there's a lot of difficult, sad things that happen in life, which I think singing about and having someone maybe be comforted by is kind of the whole reason I'm doing it. I think it's important to talk about joyful things too, but absolutely it's important to talk about difficult things that other people will be facing and will be facing even more than you, and
Yeah, and I do think that the sort of legion of young fans you've now got on TikTok do take comfort in it.
I hope so.
And do take comfort in that
I
song.
definitely hope so. Yeah. It's a bit of a ridiculous song to take comfort in, but I'm glad if they are. Yeah.
Oh, and I have to ask, is it true that you wrote it about your cat?
No, it's not.
That was just a TikTok for the likes.
In hindsight, maybe I was writing it about the cat that I had never met yet.
Oh, so you got a cat afterwards?
Well, I moved into a house with like 2 cats and sort of became like the fun uncle, you know. Well, maybe not the fun uncle, but an uncle, and just grew very attached to these cats. Yeah.
Because I did see that a sort of young fan had posted a video of her crying, going, "Just found out Matt Maltese wrote this song about his cat." So maybe people are taking it a bit seriously.
I think people have taken it seriously. I'm very happy for them to believe that. I think it's a beautiful thing to write a song about. Yeah.
Oh God. Well,
and I wish I did. Yeah.
Talking about kind of Morrissey and stuff like that, what people are comparing you to. Who are your influences? Who did you listen to growing up? Stuff like that.
I think an unhealthy amount of Leonard Cohen, and yeah, sort of crooners. I think was a big thing. I sort of loved like Chet Baker, and I loved kind of anything that was like slightly jazz leaning. I think so. Like your Nina Simone's, just amazing songwriters that had very beautiful wilting melodies over interesting chords, and yeah. And I think we're singing about dark things as well was something that I, as a very melodramatic teen, took a lot of comfort in. Yeah.
Do you think if you'd had TikTok as a melodramatic teen, you'd be doing the same thing?
Yeah, it would have been absolutely awful. I don't know if I would have ever gotten into it. I think that the problem with romanticizing or with listening to sort of old musicians is you can't ever imagine them using those platforms, and so it makes you sort of be quite discerning of those platforms, but actually you forget that they probably would have been doing the exact same things that you think are a bit trashy.
For sure. And you're a South Londoner, right? Is that where you grew up?
No, so I actually grew up in Reading, but South London in the fact that I have been there for sort of 6 years, and Canadian really. My parents are Canadian, so yeah.
Do you think all those different places have influenced how you write music at all?
I think absolutely. I think Reading was quite isolated, and I maybe didn't really like meet a very great variety of people, and I think moving to London, it's communities and communities and communities, and it's extraordinary how many people from different walks of life there are, and just how much harsher the world seems in London. I think in cities, you sort of get like sounds and busyness, and I think it probably has really influenced what I write. It's hard to know what I would have written if I stayed in Reading. I think it would have been a lot more boring.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Not as vibrant as London.
Not as vibrant as it is now. Yeah.
But they do have Reading Festival.
They do. Yeah. Maybe I would have just written albums about Reading Festival.
You have recently been writing and collaborating. You wrote with Joy Crooks. How was that festival?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, she's just like a hero of mine. She's just an incredible artist, and very lucky to sort of have made a friend out of it. But yeah, it's just been one of the greatest privileges through this time as well to write for other people, and that song with Joy is definitely a massive highlight for me. Yeah.
How did it come about? Did she contact you, or?
I think we got put in touch through a sort of mutual person we both worked with, and it just kind of clicked. I sort of I always tell her that I thought she didn't like me when we first met, but then she sort of offered me a lift, and we were like driving back to Elephant and Castle with the roof down, and I was like, okay, Joy is amazing. Yeah.
She likes me.
Yeah.
I always feel that way as well.
Yeah.
Do you like me? Okay.
Yeah.
Is collaborating and songwriting with other people, is that something that you want to do more, plan to do more?
I think so. I think I think just writing a song every day is kind of what I'm doing it all for. So I feel like there's an amazing element of writing for other people in which you're sort of not your own boss, which I really like. I think sort of there's a self-obsessiveness to songwriting too much for yourself, because you're just always trying to think, what do I feel today? How do I put it in a good way? And actually, when you're a part of other people's stories and just helping craft them, and you might give a lot or you might give very little. And I guess also I was so isolated when I make my own albums, which is kind of the way it has to be, and I'm cool with that. It was just an eye opener to be in a room with people and be like, oh, this can actually be like fun. It doesn't have to to feel so emotionally draining. So yeah, I think it's something I'd definitely like to do for a long time, and I just really love writing a song. Yeah.
Who would you like to collaborate with? What an
question.
open-ended question.
Yeah, I think just amazing voices. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure. Anyone who likes ballads, basically. Yeah.
Would you ever make something sort of more jazzy? Because you said you love that kind of music.
I think I'd probably dip my toes in as far as that can go.
You think?
Yeah. I don't think I'm a proficient enough player, and I think it's. But I definitely think I draw from sort of chordal movements of that genre, but I could never ever be a jazz musician. Just not good enough. Yeah.
That's very humble. Do you think so? Does it get lonely, kind of writing your own album the whole time, like when you're down here in this studio?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure lonely's the right. I think it's sort of. I think it just requires a lot of introspection, which is an amazing thing to have. I think there's a lot of people with full-time jobs that don't ever even get to think about themselves, and the fact that my job is to think about myself a lot of the time is ridiculous. But naturally, I think it's like anything. It's like the more you think about life, sometimes the sadder it can seem, and there's I think a perfect balance between like thinking about life enough, but also not thinking about it too much. And I think sometimes when you're in the process of making your own album, you can sort of do that extra month you didn't need to do. But balancing it out with writing for other people has been great. I think has given me more perspective on what I do. But yeah, I'd say the loneliness is just regardless of that. Really,
Sure.
I think it just exists in everyone's life to a certain degree. But definitely having more thinking time is a double-edged sword. Yeah.
And who worked on the album with you, like producing it and stuff like that? Because I'm sure you have some stories about them.
Yeah, I made it with this guy called Tom Carmichael who'd mixed a lot of Crystal. So Crystal I'd kind of produced in my room, and then he'd sort of finished them up for me. And this one was even more collaborative. Really, we sort of produced it together in the studio, and it was great. Yeah, we had sort of 2 weeks at this sort of residential studio, and I even tried swimming in the sea, which was the worst decision of my life. So I couldn't feel my feet for about an hour and a half. But no, it was so special to be in person with someone making music in that time.
And kind of finally to close, what do you think? What do you want people to take away from the third album? If there was kind of one or two messages, what would it be?
That's a very good question. Something I should have planned for, really. I'd say that there is hope if you look hard enough, and people are all we have.
Amazing. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us here at NME.
Thank you for having me.